Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're getting into something truly foundational, especially if your goal is, to absorb complex information quickly and thoroughly.
Which we know it is.
Exactly.
hmm
We're diving into some excerpts focused on a concept called developing listening acumen.
Mm.
And specifically, we're looking at the pages that are dedicated to these structured listening practice ideas.
Right. This is the really practical stuff.
It is. And this isn't about general politeness or just nodding at the right time in a meeting. Our mission today is to really unpack the core concept here.
What listening acumen actually is.
Yes. And more importantly, why the sources insist that the path to mastering information requires deliberate, targeted practice. It's
Yeah.
not something you just get better at by, getting older.
I think the premise here is a real game changer. It takes listening out of that soft skills bucket and puts it right into the category of a high performance competency.
A hard skill.
A hard skill,
Mhm.
absolutely. The source presents it not as this simple passive thing, but as a critical high-level skill. It demands sharpness, quick insight, and sophisticated judgment. That's what they're calling acumen.
And if it's a skill that can be developed, then these practice ideas are, what, the training regimen?
They're the blueprint, exactly.
Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the basics. If hearing is just physiological sound waves hitting the eardrum, what truly separates that from the cognitive achievement of listening acumen?
It's the speed and the depth of interpretation. That's the whole game.
Okay.
Hearing, it just decodes the words. Acumen interprets the message and its strategic relevance, and it does it instantly.
Give me an example.
Okay, think of it like this. A casual listener hears someone say, "The market is stabilizing."
Right, a simple statement.
A simple statement, but a listener with acumen, they hear that same phrase, and they instantly recognize the speaker is trying to mitigate risk perception
Oh.
based on the subtle stress on the word stabilizing. It implies that it was recently volatile.
So you're reading the subtext in real time.
You're moving beyond the surface level, the dictionary definition, to grasping the intent, the context, the nuance. It's the difference between seeing all the pieces on a chessboard and, well, seeing 3 moves ahead.
So mastery is the goal.
The inherent goal is mastery, yeah. Reaching a point where that kind of insight is almost instantaneous.
And I think that word developing is the key hook for our listeners.
Yeah,
It speaks directly to that learner's mindset.
it does.
If listening were a fixed trait, we just stop trying to improve it. But by labeling it as a dynamic, scalable skill, the source immediately appeals to that drive for self-improvement.
And for efficiency, let's be honest.
Right, optimization. You're not just trying to get the gist anymore. You're systematically trying to gain a competitive edge in how you acquire knowledge.
What's fascinating here is that whole process transforms passive intake into something active. It becomes predictive synthesis.
What do you mean by predictive?
Well, instead of just waiting for the full thought to be delivered to you, acumen lets you anticipate the logical conclusion or, the underlying concern that's not being said, which means you are processing information faster than it's being delivered.
Okay, that brings us right to the core of this source material then. The necessity of these formalized practice ideas. Why can't we just get better by being in more meetings? Isn't continuous exposure enough?
I have to say, I worry that focusing so much on formal practice risks making listening feel, performed and unnatural.
That's a fair challenge, a really common one, actually. But the distinction is between repetition and deliberate practice.
Okay.
Look, you can drive a car for 20 years, but if you don't actively focus on correcting your bad habits, you'll just be an average driver for 20 years. These practices are designed to target the deficits we all naturally develop.
Deficits like what?
Well, for instance, we often suffer from what we could call the rehearsal deficit.
I think I know this one. We're all guilty of it. We're so busy rehearsing our next brilliant response that we physically stop processing what the speaker is saying.
Right, or the contextual blindness deficit.
Exactly, where you hear the facts, but you completely fail to integrate the organizational history or maybe the emotional subtext behind them.
So these formalized practices are like running drills. They force us to engage the mental muscles we usually just let slide.
That's a perfect analogy.
Okay, so give us an example. What does one of these practice ideas actually look like in action? Something that targets that gap between hearing facts and interpreting intent.
All right, let's use a method that's implied by the source's focus on nuance. We can call it the intent versus delivery gap analysis.
Okay, sounds serious.
It is. It's a structured exercise for high-stakes, nuanced conversations. Think performance reviews, budget negotiations, that kind of thing.
Got it.
The practice requires you to just, on a piece of paper or a screen, compartmentalize your notes into 2 columns.
Simple enough.
Column A is delivered facts and logic. This is purely objective stuff. The statements, the KPIs, the data points.
Just what was said?
Just what was said. But column B, that's interpreted intent and subtext. That's where you write down what the speaker actually seems to be asking for, or maybe what they're trying to avoid.
Whoa. That forces you to bifurcate your attention. You can't just follow the story.
You can't. You have to simultaneously analyze the speaker.
So if a colleague says...
What? Okay, so if a colleague says, and this goes in column A, we need to hit the Q3 target, so we should pull resources from the marketing initiative.
A logical sounding statement.
Right, but in column B, you might write intent. Needs cover for an internal resource problem he's having. He's using the Q3 goal as justification.
I see. The moment you are forced to write down that implied intent, you stop taking statements at face value.
You have to. And if you practice that, let's say you do that analysis on just 3 important meetings a week, you start to internalize that analytical filter. You're building an internal radar for detecting logical manipulation or hidden asks.
And this connects to the bigger picture how.
Well, if we zoom out, this kind of structured practice is a recognition that modern communication environments are incredibly complex. We are constantly flooded.
Information overload.
Total overload. And these drills, they help us filter the noise. They help us overcome the cognitive biases that make us want to agree too quickly or anticipate the wrong thing. You need these methods to enhance your informational synthesis, to make sure the true signal stands out immediately.
Okay, let's pivot to the second critical piece here, retention and synthesis. Because sometimes the problem isn't nuance, it's just sheer volume.
Absolutely.
We get bombarded with technical data, complex lecture material.
Yeah.
And then you struggle to hold the architecture of the argument in your head 5 minutes later.
And that leads directly into the structure of effective development.
Right.
It suggests the practice ideas have to be adaptable, right? The intent analysis is great for a subtle negotiation.
But not for a fire hose of technical data.
Exactly. For high-volume absorption, you need something that builds informational synthesis.
So let's look at another one.
Let's look at another implied practice, one that's focused on retention across multiple points. We could call this one the 3X synthesis drill.
3X synthesis.
Yeah. And this is perfect for technical lectures, complex presentations, or those, long committee meetings where everything blurs together.
Okay, tell us how that drill works.
So the 3X synthesis drill requires you to summarize the content 3 times using 3 different criteria, and you do it immediately after the information intake is over.
Okay, 3 different summaries.
2 different summaries. First one, the facts. You just list the 5 most concrete, verifiable data points or specific details that were mentioned.
Straight recall.
Straight recall. Second summary, the framework. Here, you outline the speaker's core organizational structure. Did they present chronologically? Was it problem and solution? You literally map the architecture of the information.
So you're not just remembering the building blocks, you're remembering how the architect designed the building.
Precisely. And then the third summary, this is the key, the so what utility.
The payoff.
The payoff. You answer this one question. Based on all this information, what is the single most important decision or action item that needs to happen next? This forces you to integrate the facts and the framework into practical application.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because the systematic repetition of that drill, the 3X synthesis drill, that's how you achieve cognitive leverage.
Yes.
When you first try it, you have to consciously strain to remember those 3 things. It feels like work. But after a few weeks of doing this, that process, it internalizes.
It becomes automatic.
It's like freeing up RAM on your computer. When you don't have to consciously regulate your focus or worry about retention, all that mental capacity is instantly diverted to higher order processing.
Critical evaluation, pattern recognition.
And synthesizing this new information with your existing knowledge base.
And that transformation from that awkward conscious effort into subconscious excellence, that is the definition of having developed acumen. You move from running a script in your head to having an optimized operating system that just works in the background. And that efficiency gain is massive for you, the listener, who needs to get up to speed on complex fields rapidly.
So the practice ideas are not hurdles.
Not at all. They're shortcuts. They are the systematic approach to developing that sophisticated judgment you need to quickly differentiate signal from noise, whether you are in a nuanced negotiation or you're absorbing a dense technical paper.
So we've really confirmed the core thesis today. Sophisticated listening isn't innate. It's a high-level, trainable skill.
And it's the entry point for all other knowledge.
Right. And developing that true acumen, it requires targeted practice. It forces us to overcome these specific deficits we have, like poor retention or contextual blindness.
This raises an important question.
Go on.
If success in almost any modern knowledge-based field depends on timely and accurate information, which is often delivered verbally in high-speed, complex environments,
Which it is.
what is the competitive or the cognitive cost of allowing your most fundamental information gathering tool you're listening to remain untrained, to just rely on passive habit and hope for the best?
That's the challenge for you to take forward. Think about those specific scenarios in your own life, whether it's a strategic business meeting, a technical lecture, or a crucial feedback session. Where would implementing one of these targeted practice ideas yield the highest immediate return for you? Start testing these principles right away and turn that passive intake into active, predictive mastery. We'll catch you next time for the next deep dive.